In 1992, excavators digging beneath the ancient city of Ephesus found something strange inside a Roman latrine. Not coins, not jewelry, not weapons. A small stick with a sponge on the end. It had been used, cleaned, and put back for the next person. For decades, historians debated what it meant. Then, someone finally asked the question nobody wanted to ask out loud. If this is what they used in a city, with running water and public bathrooms, what were people doing before cities existed? The answer reaches back 300,000 years, and it is not what you expect. Let's start with the assumption most people carry without ever examining it. Ancient humans were dirty, primitive. They squatted wherever they happened to be standing and moved on without a second thought. That assumption is wrong, almost completely wrong. And the evidence that dismantles it has been sitting quietly in the archaeological record for decades, waiting for someone to ask the right question. When modern humans first appeared 300,000 years ago, they were nomadic, moving constantly, following food, following water, following seasons across hundreds of miles of open terrain. And here is the thing about nomadic life that most people miss entirely. You do not need a toilet system when you keep moving. A group of 20 to 30 people spread across hundreds of square miles of open landscape never accumulates enough waste in one place to cause a problem. The soil absorbs it, insects break it down, rain disperses it. The decomposition cycle handles everything before it can become dangerous. The land was the system. And for hundreds of thousands of years, it worked perfectly. Then, something changed. Around 10,000 years ago, humans stopped moving. Agriculture happened. Crops had to be planted, tended, and harvested in the same location season after season. Animals were penned. Grain was stored. Communities took root. And with agriculture came the thing nobody in the history books ever talks about. Permanent settlement meant permanent waste accumulation. For the first time in human history, the problem could not simply be walked away from. Archaeologists have a name for the ancient refuse heaps they find buried beneath human settlements. They call them middens. And inside every midden is something historians have quietly called the most complete record of how ancient people actually lived. Not their temples, not their weapons, not their art, their waste. Because what you throw away tells a more honest story about who you are than anything you meant to leave behind. The earliest middens date back roughly 125,000 years, found along the coastlines of South Africa. Shellfish remains, animal bones, ash from cooking fires. But mixed in with all of it, carefully, deliberately, was human waste. Not scattered randomly across the site, deposited in specific layers, covered with soil, covered with ash, then covered again with another layer of soil on top. These were not accidental dump sites, they were engineered. The people who built them understood, without microscopes, without germ theory, without any scientific framework we recognize today, that waste needed to be contained, layered, and buried. They did not know what bacteria was. They knew what happened when waste was left uncovered. They had watched it. They had learned from it. And they built an entire system around preventing it from ever happening again. But here's the part that changes how you see everything that came before cities. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer communities across Africa, Australia, and South America have documented something consistent across every single group studied. Every community has designated areas, placed upwind from sleeping spaces, positioned downhill from water sources, far enough from food preparation areas to prevent contamination, close enough to reach at night without leaving the safety of the fire's light. The placement is never accidental. It follows rules that were developed, tested, refined, and passed down across generations so ancient that no written record of them exists anywhere on Earth. Several indigenous cultures in the Americas went further still. Waste sites were treated as a form of returning something to the earth. What the body no longer needed went back to the ground that had provided it. Certain plants were known to grow strongest near these sites. Those plants were cultivated there deliberately. Waste became fertilizer. Fertilizer became food. Food became waste again. A closed loop so precise that modern sustainable agriculture is still trying to replicate it. The knowledge was real. It was sophisticated. It was ancient. And then Europe forgot all of it. Medieval cities, Paris, London, Edinburgh, had open channels running down the center of roads where residents were legally required to deposit their waste each morning.
The smell was so constant and so overwhelming that wealthy citizens carried small bouquets of flowers to hold beneath their noses while walking outside. This is where the word perfume comes from, not from luxury, from survival. The bubonic plague that killed 1 in 3 people across Europe in the 14th century was not caused by rats alone. It was accelerated by 1,000 years of humans living in their own accumulated waste, in cities built with none of the systems that came before them, a problem the Indus Valley Civilization had solved 4,000 years earlier, a problem nomadic hunter-gatherers had never had at all. In 1854, a physician named John Snow traced a cholera outbreak in London back to a single water pump contaminated by a leaking cesspit 6 feet away. His discovery launched the entire modern field of epidemiology. It also confirmed what ancient humans had understood for 125,000 years without a single study, a single microscope, or a single peer-reviewed paper. Keep the waste away from the water. Keep the waste away from the food. Cover it. Bury it. Return it. The knowledge was never lost. It was unlearned, slowly, deliberately, by civilizations that grew too fast and assumed the problem would solve itself. You are living inside the civilization that had to rediscover all of it the hard way, in body counts, in mass graves, in cities so foul the language invented new words just to cope with the smell. The people you were taught to call primitive never had that problem. They just never stopped paying attention to the thing everyone else decided wasn't worth thinking about. And that, it turns out, made all the difference.